What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pitt Podcast, your daily podcast covering the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As usual, I am Nick Fairby, right for Pittsburgh Sports Now, call games at WPTS Radio, and I'm a production assistant at ACC Network. And folks, today we have a big episode. Aaron Donald, Pitt legend, finally gets the Super Bowl ring he has been waiting for. We'll talk about his impact on this game, how much it feels, the journey he's taken from Penn Hills all the way to Pitt to now, all potential retirement talks. We'll talk about all Aaron Donald. And today, we might sprinkle in a little bit of Pitt basketball, but most of that probably is going to be tomorrow for where we can dedicate a full show to that. But all of the Aaron Donald talk coming up today on this episode of Locked On Pitt.
You are Locked On Pitt, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Locked On Pitt Podcast. As always, thank you for making Locked On Pitt your first listen every day, folks. Always appreciate that. Comment, like, subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, give feedback. If you are listening to this, whatever you can do, always appreciate the feedback, folks. And today's episode of Locked On Pitt is brought to you by Bet Online. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. And folks, today there's a lot to talk about, but it was a very eventful week in terms of Pitt sports. The first women's lacrosse game, Pitt women's basketball having Pink the Peak today and losing on that stunner to Syracuse, and also, of course, the fifth conference win for Pitt and the men on that side. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that today. But Aaron Donald winning the Super Bowl ring he has been chasing for forever. It feels like, for a guy that's done so much in his career, just from a logistical perspective, like an individual stats perspective, this dude has been an absolute pace setter for the interior defensive line position. He's almost never injured. He's consistently working hard. He's won the Defensive Player of the Year more times than he can count. The one thing he didn't have coming into today's game, and even though he had been to the Super Bowl before this was a guy that did not have that ring. And that was huge. Not having that Super Bowl ring, he's a three-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's a Defensive Rookie of the Year. He has all the All-Pros in the world. The dude has everything you would want. In terms of the NCAA, he has the Bronco Nagurski Award, the Bednarik Award, the Lombardi, the Outland. He has all this just individual hardware. I mean, even going back to high school, this is a guy that has everything. But understand, he does not have that ring. At any level, he doesn't have a championship ring. But he has it now. And that is exactly why this is huge for Aaron Donald. It's like, what else could he do? I mean, really, look at it. What else could this guy do? Because when you look at Aaron Donald, the numbers are just gaudy. And this is a guy that's played 8 years in the NFL. He's been an All-Pro in 7 of those years. 7 All-Pros in 8 years. Absurd. He's only 30. I mean, we're talking about a guy that has won the Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, has 7 All-Pros, has all this hardware with him, and he's only 30 years old. The individual accomplishments just stand out in terms of his age and relative experience. You just don't see guys, especially at the defensive tackle position, put up the pace Aaron Donald has. And then you look at the point of, well, maybe he doesn't step up in big games. And that it's just not true. He steps up every single time down the stretch when they need him the most in these games. It's like, who else do you need? Aaron Donald. I also forgot he was named to the All-Decade team. So he's also got that. I mean, we're talking about a ring or not this year. We were talking about one of the best defensive players to ever put on the pads. We were also talking about a future first ballot Hall of Fame. That's the type of guy we were talking about. Now, it's just a cherry on top. He now has not only the individual accomplishment, he has that ring. He didn't want to be known as that great defensive player, the generational guy that could never get. He didn't want to be known as the Dan Marino of defensive tackles. Didn't want to be known like that. He's not going to be known like that because he now has that ring. And it really is huge for him. I mean, this really is huge for Aaron Donald. But just look at the career stats. I mean, it's absurd at this point. Almost 100 career sacks for an interior defensive lineman through as many seasons as he's played is absurd. 150 tackles for loss, absurd. I mean, this dude is putting up record pace numbers at his position. And so I can't tell you how much it feels good to see him do this. A real class model guy, especially for someone, from a Pitt perspective. I mean, this is a guy that does everything, right? And I mean that straight up does everything for this program. He works out down the south side every offseason. He talks to recruits. He talks to players. He helps them out. He gives guidance to everyone. He gives gracious donations of millions of dollars in order to help the program. He has no obligation to do that. But he does all this. And so the guy really had done everything he could have and doing a ton of charity work both in Pittsburgh and LA. There's just not much else he could do. He's accomplished on the field. He's accomplished off the field in terms of charity work, philanthropy. And so this is really exactly what he needed. This is a dude that we're now having a real talk about as being, I know there are names that you're going to put out there like Dorsett and Marino. Fitzgerald is going to be thrown in there as well, I would assume. But we have to put him, Hugh Green, of course, as well. I'm just naming guys, legendary Pitt players. These guys are legendary. These guys are Hall of Famers. These guys are unbelievable. When do we start talk like Aaron Donald's in that conversation in terms of totality, in terms of Panther moments, in terms of NFL resume, in terms of maybe Mr. Panther, and that's probably who the first person you think of if you're a Pitt fan. Even if you were born in my era, I think you think of Tony Dorsett. I never saw the man play live, but first guy I think of when I think of Pitt is Tony Dorsett. But is the greatest Panther ever now Aaron Donald? I think there's a discussion to be had there, and this is a nice cherry on top of a career that has just been needing that ring. It's been the one thing the guy's been missing his whole career. He has all the hardware. He has all the statistics. He has everything surrounding the mystique of a Hall of Fame player. He was going to get the gold jacket regardless. Now he has the ability to claim, I have that ring. You can't play with me anymore. I have everything. There's no knock on Aaron Donald anymore. He has the complete picture. He has the complete career. Everything you'd ever want is there. I want to talk a little about the journey of Aaron Donald because I've watched this guy grow from Penn Hills 3-star to Pitt domination to now this player. And I want to talk about the whole journey about it and kind of what stuck out to me, what stuck out about Aaron Donald overall. And then the retirement talk, really going to retire this year. We'll talk about that as well. But first, let me let you know about BetOnline because football might be over for the season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, play performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is your number one spot for all the sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your best sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC right to your Olympic coverage and information. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn about more about these trends and actions. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast, your daily podcast for the Pittsburgh Panthers. So we continue to talk Aaron Donald here a little bit. Aaron Donald continuing his rampage upon the NFL, having huge moments in this Super Bowl. Kind of held shut in the first half, which is something you can absolutely hold against him, but also understand what you can't hold against him anymore is that ringless argument. Because this is a dude now that has everything from the college hardware to the gold jacket he's going to get eventually. We've talked about it all. Aaron Donald has the hardware and everything to back it up. Great player, and had the big moments too. The great play on Jimmy G in the NFC Championship today, the big run stop, and then the almost sack of Joe Burrow on 4th and 1 to force that. Everything has been working for Aaron Donald, and when the team needs him most, the dude steps up. And I think that's the real mark of the greatest players we see. I mean, there are great talents we see, but great players have the ability to transcend moments, right? And they are clutch. But they're also, because there are clutch players that might not be elite players, but stand out in our clutch, right? I think Eli Manning sticks out as one of those. I mean, a consistently clutch performer, but you look at his stats across the board, a lot of them aren't mediocre. A lot of them are mediocre rather. So he wasn't the guy that necessarily was great all the time, but Donald is. He's the guy that has the blend of unbelievable talent and play even when the situation is big, and then rising to the occasion to help his team when they need him most. And that is something you have to admire about Aaron Donald, because he does rise to that occasion. And so this dude's journey, and he didn't have a ton of big moments here at Pitt. Pitt's teams just weren't good enough under him, unfortunately, to get that. And that's the thing. And Aaron Donald is just unbelievable. And so, honestly, this is a guy that from Penn Hills was under recruited. I mean, the documentation of his journey means nothing from me. A 3-star with offers from Toledo, Rutgers, and Pitt. He wasn't offered by many schools. This is a really under-recruited guy, but Pitt was in on him. Pitt found him. Credit to Dave Wannstedt and staff. And the team really went through with it. They really bought into it. And so Aaron Donald is a guy that is the type of story Pitt is dreamed to for local kids. And the type of message that Dave Wannstedt got his players to buy into when he was here across those great teams. And Aaron Donald there's just no dude that I think, there are 2 dudes in my football watching career that I can just say are built different in terms of work ethic. One of those men is Antonio Brown. For whatever your opinion is of that man off the field, he's one of the tireless workers I've ever seen in the game of football. There's a reason he was as great as he was. It was because he's an unbelievable worker. One of the best I've ever seen, one of the most insane I've ever seen. Aaron Donald's the same way. One of the hardest workers I've ever seen. Legitimately. This is a guy that is absolutely absurd in terms of what he could do, because he had the natural talent, but he combined that with an unreal work ethic, and that was special. And so Aaron Donald continues to build a resume that's unbelievable. You knew he was special when he started to play for Pitt. He grew each year, and when you really saw that he was special and you saw, oh boy, this guy isn't just good. Because there are guys that are good, and you could tell Tyler Boyd, for example, was good. He's carved out a nice NFL career. You could say Shady McCoy was really good, and he might be a Hall of Famer one day. But when I'm talking about special, I'm not just talking about, he's going to be a elite player. McCoy was that for a while, for example. I'm talking about, you have a generational type player. You have a guy that is going to do things that you have never, ever seen before. Is double tackling Duke's running back and quarterback, something you've never ever seen done before, because it is for me. I've never seen it before. I've never seen it since. It really is that special type of player. The consistent highs, the consistent play at a high level. This is a guy that has done everything to the most. He does the most for everything, and he puts his mind to everything. In that, there's a special type of player that comes out of that. When you have the natural explosiveness and power that John has. Yeah, he was undersized, but he's turned that into an elite football player because of his tireless work ethic. He's so perfect in terms of his technique, but he also has those athletic gifts that he capitalizes on. It's the perfect blend. And that's where you get a guy like that as generational as Aaron Donald. And I don't think I'm taking a Pitt-centric view of this. He's one of the best defensive players to ever step on the football field. That's straight up. Put him up there with some of the greatest to ever touch the grass. You can. You can't deny it to me anymore. Look at the resume. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. 7-time All-Pro. He's a Super Bowl champ. For an interior defensive lineman, he's shattering records. He's shattering the pace. No one has done what he has done from that position. No one. Put him up there with some of the greatest players you've ever seen play. I ain't saying he's the greatest defensive player to ever touch the field, but he deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as the Lawrence Taylors. Those guys that are so great, and I think Lawrence Taylor is, I think unanimously, or unanimously known as the GOAT, and for good reason in terms of defensive players. Well, Aaron Donald deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as guys like that. He really does. He might be the greatest interior defensive lineman to ever play the game. And again, there's been a lot of great interior defensive linemen. You don't need to mention them to me. Me and Joe Green played for the Steelers, right? Bob Lilly's was amazing. If you want to go more recent, John Randall, Warren Sapp. Like, these are all guys that are amazing football players and are up there with some of the best ever. I don't think I've seen anyone come along at the interior defensive lineman position like Aaron Donald. And that's the type of player we're talking about here. And that's why this is just so special for him, because he is that generational player. It would have meant a lot more if he hadn't gotten that ring. And that's the point. Because that word generational gets thrown around like it's cookie cutter. Everyone in this draft class is generational. One of the first players that you will see mentioned among all-time greats, though, once he retires, and it could be after this game, as we talked about, could be Aaron Donald. And it should be. Just an insane career. Did all at the age of 30, all before the age of 31. Right now, he retires right now. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Mentioned as one of the greatest players ever to touch the grass. That's the type of player we're talking about here. And that's why his journey is so cool. Because going from that 3-star to Pitt, to the star he was at Pitt, to winning national awards, to becoming a unanimous All-American, to then winning the Defensive Rookie of the Year, to then winning Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, to now winning a Super Bowl. It just seems like the ultimate culmination. Like, what else does he have to do? He can play more. He's got more great years in him, that's for sure. Aaron Donald hasn't slowed down yet. His body is not broken down. But if he does retire, and we'll talk about that after this break, if it makes sense for him to retire, I don't know what else much he has to do. But first, before we talk about Aaron Donald retiring, let me let you know about Built Bar, because this is the time of year that you've pretty much given up on New Year's resolutions, I know, but not this year. So stick to those resolutions thanks to Built Bar, because it can almost feel like it's not really a resolution because you can actually enjoy eating them. Folks, if you try the Puffs, if you haven't, you're missing out on one of the best Built Bar tasting bars that they have. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. That's right. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. Yummy, cinnamon-y churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. They're so good, and these are going to be your new favorite. But all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and I'm telling you, that is 100% real chocolate. But you get all the health benefits of an actual protein bar. It's low in calories, low in sugar, low in carbs, high in protein. So it's just like a protein bar, but tastes so much better. So, folks, here's the offer. Go to built.com, use our promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Again, all that's you have to do is go to use our promo code LOCKED15 for 50% off at built.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast. We continue to talk about Aaron Donald here on this show. And I do want to weigh in on these retirement questions. Is he going to retire? I mean, I've said it. I mean, it would be kind of, it wouldn't be unprecedented because we've seen great players like Calvin Johnson and Andrew Luck recently call it quits early. And those guys are obviously phenomenal players as well. But more importantly, and I say this like, you got to retire when football might not be fun for you anymore, when you want to spend more time with the family. I mean, this has been the thing about Sean McVay for the whole week. Like, why would he retire at 36 years old as a coach? Well, he's getting married. He might want to start a family. Like, there's legitimate things. Because football's such a taxing sport, and it's a sport you have to dedicate your life to. Like, yeah, you can have your family, but football, I know people say family, faith, football. That's what it comes. But football is such a big encapsulation of your life if you play it. And then when you don't, it's going to be a big void to fill, or going to be a time where you can fill it in with your family. And Aaron Donald has a family. And I say that because, he could keep playing and it wouldn't necessarily hurt him at all. He could absolutely keep playing. The dude's only 30 years old. He can keep racking up the count, still be the best defensive player in the league. This is a dude that can continue to do what he's doing. And we all understand that. But understand what type of player he is, the generational type. He's done everything. And we mentioned that before. A 7-time first-team All-Pro. I mean, he has not missed an All-Pro team from 2015 to 2021. He's only All-Decade team. This is a guy that has 3 Defensive Players of the Year. He has the Rookie of the Year, Super Bowl. Other than hitting maybe like 100 sacks, like what else does he have to do at this point? Does it really matter for him to be up on those all-time lists? Doesn't really. Everyone knows he's a record setter. He's in terms of pace-wise. Everyone knows this is a dude that is one of the best players to ever touch the football field, especially at the interior defensive lineman position. There just are so few that come through that position that are like Aaron Donald. A true game record that has literally never fallen off in 7 years. That's a special talent. And so when we talk about doesn't make sense for Aaron Donald to retire, like what else does he have to do? There's nothing at this point that could hurt Aaron Donald's legacy. His body's just going to keep breaking down, and eventually he's going to fall off. Who knows when that is? But there really is nothing else this dude has to do. And he's done everything. He's done everything in terms of actually looking at just stats, plays. He's got the signature moments now. There were signature moments, I guess, but now he's done it in front of everybody. Like he has a Super Bowl moment in terms of that pressure and that run stop. That sequence, that's Aaron Donald to a T, and it's going to encapsulate his career. The big play on Jimmy G, another one. Like Aaron Donald has his moments. He has his signature moments. And so, hearing about what he was saying and kind of brushing it aside, he doesn't know. I think he's seriously considering that. And so, great for Aaron Donald. But there's no doubt about this. If he retires, he's walking away with nothing to do. Because he has nothing else to do. Literally, he has nothing else to do on the football field at this point. He's done everything with the Rams. He's brought them a ring. I don't know what else he could do unless he sets out some, unique type of thing he wants to do. For, some guys maybe, they got to put themselves up against themselves. And that's what Tom Brady did, and he kept playing. Maybe Aaron Donald doesn't enjoy it. He's been a football lifer for so long. Maybe he wants to enjoy the family life. Like, that is completely up to him, and I think that's a completely valid argument. Again, he hasn't been hurt much, but his body's going to be breaking down soon. He's 30. He is 30 now. And he could continue to play until he's 36, 37 probably, just because of how good he is, but the injuries will come eventually. He'll start to fall off. He won't be the player he once was. Like, that's the type of player Aaron Donald is. And so if they retire, if he retires, Aaron Donald is going to go out on top. I mean, it'd be the perfect way for him to go out. Maybe he wants another ring. I don't know. Maybe he just keeps playing because he enjoys it still and doesn't want to quite walk away. I think that's the main component here. Factoring outside life, like what does he want to do outside versus if he thinks he can still continue playing and enjoying it at a high level while not compromising his outside life to a degree that he's not okay with. And that's going to be his risk reward, his compare contrast, his cost benefit analysis. That'll be what he needs to do. But understand right now, if he walks away, he has nothing else to prove. He's done everything he could in football, both on and off the field. And if he wants to go to green or pastures after football, it's completely okay because the guy is one of the best players to ever touch a football field. And he's going to go into the Hall of Fame whenever he retires, if he does after this year. And if this is the last we've seen of Aaron Donald, man, been a pleasure. And really, this is a great way to see him go out if that is the case. All right, folks, tomorrow we'll talk about Pitt men's basketball, the win over NC State, how you continue to evaluate Jeff Capel as he continues to do things down the stretch, and overall, what is the direction that this team is going over the last 5 games. We'll talk about that all tomorrow on Locked On Pitt. And folks, as always, thank you for listening. And as always, as we end it, hail to Pitt.